are battling together, year after year, for this special privilege of being bored to death. The real girl that you're asking about, the marvelous girl, the girl with the big, beautiful, unspoken thoughts in her head, the girl with the big, brave, undone deeds in her heart, the girl that stories are made of, the girl whom you call improbable, is moping off alone in some dark, cold corner, or sitting forlornly, partnerless, against the bleak wall of the ballroom, or hiding shyly up in the dressing room, waiting to be discovered. Little Miss Stillwaters, deeper than 10,000 seas. Little Miss Gunpowder, milder than the dusk before the moon ignites it. Little Miss Sleeping Beauty, waiting for her prince. "Oh, yes, I suppose so," conceded the Younger Man impatiently. "But that Miss Von Eaton—" "Oh, it isn't that I don't know pretty face or hat when I see it," interrupted the Older Man nonchalantly. "It's only that I don't put my trust in 'em." With a quick gesture, half audacious, half apologetic, he reached forward suddenly and tapped the Younger Man's coat sleeve. "Oh, I knew just as well as you," he affirmed. "Oh, I knew just as well as you at my first glance that your gorgeous young Miss Von Eaton was excellingly handsome. But I also knew, not later certainly than my second glance, that she was presumably rather stupid. You can't be interesting, you know, my young friend, unless you do interesting things, and handsome creatures are proverbially lazy. If beauty is excuse enough for being, it sure makes plainness then to feel the real necessity for doing. So, speaking of hats, if it's stimulating conversation that you're after, if you're looking for something unique, something significant, something really worth while, what you want to do, my young friend, is to find a girl with a hat you'd be ashamed to go out with and stay home with her. That's where you'll find the brains, the originality, the vivacity, the sagacity, the real ideas." With his first sign of genuine amusement, the Younger Man tipped back his head and laughed right up into the green-lined roof of the piazza. "Now just whom would you specially recommend for me?" he demanded mirthfully. "Among all the feminine galaxy of bores and frumps that seem to be congregated at this particular hotel, just whom would you specially recommend for me? The stoop-shouldered school-marmy botany dame with her incessant garden gloves? Or his whole face brightened suddenly with a rather extraordinary amount of humorous malice. "Or how about that duddy-looking little Edgarton girl that I saw you talking with this morning?" he asked delightedly. "Heaven knows she's colorless enough to suit even you, with her winter before spring before summer before last clothes, and her voice so meek you'd have to hold her in your lap to hear it. And her—" "That duddy-looking little Miss Edgarton? Meek?" mused the Older Man in sincere astonishment. "Meek? Why, man alive, she was born in a snow shack on the Yukon River. She was at Beijing in the Boxer Rebellion. She's roped steers in Oklahoma. She's matched her embroidery silks to all the sunrise tints on the Himalayas. Just what in creation should she seem meek, do you suppose, to a $25 a week clerk like yourself?" "A $25 a week clerk like myself?" The Younger Man fairly gasped. "Why, I'm the junior partner of the firm of Barton and Barton Stockbrokers. Why, we're the biggest—" "Is that so?" quizzed the Older Man with feigned surprise. "Well, well, well, I beg your pardon. But now doesn't it all go to prove just exactly what I said in the beginning, that it doesn't behoove a single one of us to judge too hastily by appearances?" As if fairly overwhelmed with embarrassment, he sat staring silently off into space for several seconds. Then, "Speaking of this Miss Edgarton," he resumed genially, "have you ever exactly sought her out, as it were, and actually tried to get acquainted with her?" "No," said Barton shortly. "Why, the girl must be 30 years old." "So?" mused the Older Man. "Just about your age?" "I'm 32," growled the Younger Man. "I'm 62, thank God," acknowledged the Older Man. "And your gorgeous Miss Von Eaton, who bores you so all of a sudden, is about—" "20," prompted the Younger Man. "Poor senile babe," ruminated the Older Man soberly. "Eh?" gasped the Younger Man, edging forward in his chair. "Eh? Senile? 20?" "Sure," grinned the Older Man. 20 is nothing but the sere and yellow leaf of infantile caprice. But 30 is the jocund youth of character. On land or sea the Lord Almighty never made anything as radiantly, divinely young as 30. Oh, but 30's the darling age in a woman," he added with sudden exultant positiveness. 30's the birth of individuality. 30's the— "20 has got quite enough individuality for me, thank you," asserted Barton with some curtness. "But it hasn't!" cried the Older Man hotly. "You've just confessed that it hasn't." In an amazing impulse of protest he reached out and shook his freckled fist right under the Younger Man's nose. 20, I tell you, hasn't got any individuality at all," he persisted vehemently. 20 isn't anything at all except a threadbare cloak of her father's idiosyncrasies, lined with her mother's made-over tact, trimmed with her great aunt somebody's short-lipped smile, shrouding a brand-new frame of God knows what. "Eh? What?" questioned the Younger Man uneasily. "When a girl is 20, I tell you," persisted the Older Man, "there's not one marrying man among us, heaven help us, who can swear whether her charm is love's own permanent food or just nature's temporary bait. At 20, I tell you, there's not one man among us who can prove whether vivacity is temperament or just plain kiddishness, whether sweetness is real disposition or just coquetry, whether tenderness is personal discrimination or just sex, whether dumbness is stupidity or just brain hoarding its immature treasure, whether indeed coldness is prudery or just conscious passion banking its fires. The dear daredevil sweetheart whom you worship at 18 will evolve, likelier than not, into a mighty sour prig at 40. And the dove-gray lass who led you to church with her prayer book ribbons twice every Sunday will very probably decide to go onto the vaudeville stage. When her children are just in the high school, and the dull-eyed wallflower whom you dodged at all your college dances will turn out 10 chances to 1 the only really wonderful woman you know. But at 30, oh ye gods, Barton! If a girl interests you at 30, you'll be utterly mad about her when she's 40, 50, 60. If she's merry at 30, if she's ardent, if she's tender, it's her own established merriment. It's her own irreducible ardor. It's her. Why, man alive! Why? Why— "Oh, for heaven's sake!" gasped Barton. "Whoa there! Go slow! How in creation do you expect anybody to follow you?" "Follow me? Follow me?" mused the Older Man perplexedly. Staring very hard at Barton, he took the opportunity to swallow rather loudly once or twice. "Now, speaking of Miss Edgarton," he resumed persistently. "Now, speaking of this Miss Edgarton, I don't presume for an instant that you're looking for a wife on this trip, but are merely hankering a bit now and then for something rather specially diverting in the line of feminine companionship?" "Well, what of it?" conceded the Younger Man. "This of it," argued the Older Man. "If you are really craving the interesting, why don't you go out and rummage around for it? Rummage around was what I said. Yes! The real 100-cent to the dollar treasures of life, you know, aren't apt to be found labeled as such and lying around very loose on the smugly paved general highway. And astonishingly good looks and astonishingly good clothes are pretty nearly always equivalent to a sign saying, 'I've already been discovered, thank you.' But the really big sport of existence, young man, is to strike out somewhere and discover things for yourself.